Hi, everyone. Welcome to Authors Interviewing Authors, where we feature two of our Apprentice House Press authors interviewing each other to learn more about their backgrounds, their writing, and their book. But before we turn it over to the true talent, a few words about Apprentice House Press. We have two missions at Apprentice House. First, we publish great work by amazing editors, and we provide an incredible learning experience for undergraduates interested in editing, marketing, and design. Learn more and buy books at apprenticehouse.com. Use code STREAM for 20% off all purchases. Now, I'd like to introduce our wonderful authors, Edward Doyle-Gillespie and Charles Rammelkamp. Edward Doyle-Gillespie is a Baltimore City police officer, a 15-year veteran of the force. He has worked in patrol, operations, and education, among other specializations. His books of poetry include Masala Tea and Oranges, on the later edition of Sancho Panza, Socorro Prophecy, and Ariel Act. He's a former teacher who holds a Bachelor of Arts in History from George Washington University and a Master of Liberal Arts from Johns Hopkins University. And now for Charles Rammelkamp. Charles Rammelkamp is a prose editor for Brickhouse Books in Baltimore, where he lives with his wife, Abby. He's had 3 poetry collections published by Apprentice House: Mata Harl, Eye of the Day, about the life and career of the World War I femme fatale, say American Zutkus, which deals with the populist politician in Scope's child buffoon, William Jennings Bryan in Catastroika, another collection of dramatic monologues in the voices of Maria Rasputin, the Mad Monk's daughter who escaped Russia after the revolution and became a lion tamer for Ringling Brothers, and a fictional Jewish character, Sasha Feder-Mercer, who likewise escaped and immigrates to Baltimore. And now for our authors.
Greetings,
Hello.
Ed.
Hello,
How are you?
Charles. How are you doing?
Very well.
Good.
Given the other technological stuff.
Well,
Yeah.
I'm kind of leaning in. They're coming in a little glitchy here, so I'm kind of leaning in there. So
I want you to know, Ed, today I spent time with Gentrifying the Plague House, and I really enjoyed it. It's very nicely done. Congratulations, kudos, very good.
thank you so much. I spent some time with your poetry and was enthralled. It went right to the matter, didn't it? I mean, speaking as a police officer and looking at the work that you did, it was visceral and amazing. And I'm fascinated. I have to go through these. You're such a prolific writer. I have to go through this. I'm like a lion tamer. She was a lion tamer.
Yeah. It was, what an amazing life. She escaped Russia after the revolution. All of her, her father, of course, was murdered, and then her rest of her family. But she escaped and then became a cabaret dancer. Acted a lot in reproductions of her father's death, which was kind of traumatizing to her. But then joined the Ringling Brothers Circus as a lion tamer, until she was mauled by a bear in Peru, Indiana, but then she became a Rosie the Riveter, and
Really?
she was, during the World War II. Died in Los Angeles at about 1977. But
Wow.
Fascinating life.
What a life! Wow. So
She's sort of in with some of your characters, Lilith the Bruja, and Vixen.
And those are
life characters who have that kind of voodoo or whatever about them. That's
Isn't that interesting that and I think Baltimore's a great place for that. I mean, that you have that character, that those people that exist very much in that space. There's no sense of, wow, this is just bizarre the way I live. It's like, no, I'm right here and I find my power kind of right here.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's the thing.
Yeah. After the Freddie Gray stuff, I have a place in Michigan that we go to every summer, and relatives are there. People, well, to preface that, somebody I know who lives in Minneapolis, my daughter, they get, "You live in Minneapolis, boy, that's a terrible place." But I used to hear, "Baltimore, you poor guy." What? Wonderful place, it really is.
Right. Well, I mean, only so much of it gets out, right? And mean, I had friends that said to me when the riot in 2015 was taking place, "Oh my gosh, you got to get your family out. The whole city's burning." And I said, "No, actually, I live about 15 minutes away from where the epicenter of the riot, and there's no trace of it at all."
Yeah.
And that's about understanding the history of Baltimore and its physical layout and why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I think that's a huge part of it. That's inspired a lot of my writing because I very much had to kind of transport myself from one world to another just in the matter of going to work.
Yeah. Yeah. It's a block by block city. I remember I was on a jury trial once, and it was a it was well, it was a murder, but it was really a drug case. But nobody really talked about the drugs in it. But it happened 3 blocks from where I was taking my daughter every morning, my 1 or 2 year old daughter, for daycare. But it was like a world away. It's
World away.
yeah.
Yeah. And it's funny because just listening to what you're saying, I feel like I might know that area. But yeah, it's and I
Round
found
North-ish,
what was
25th.
that?
Oh, around 25th Street, North Avenue was where it was. This was years ago, so maybe neighborhoods have shifted a little. I don't know, but
Could be because I was thinking there's a place in Bolton Hill that I know there's a nursery, and that's just a few blocks from Sandtown, Winchester.
okay.
And a lot of, I mean, I think that's one of the things that really inspired me. There's no like kind of smooth transition going
Yeah.
from one world to the other. But it was designed that way. There's this very abrupt point of demarcation. Okay, their neighborhood is here. Our neighborhood will be there.
Yeah. Somebody I heard on the radio the other day was calling it, was it butterfly? A butterfly shape?
Okay, so the L and the butterfly. The L and the butterfly. I do some work with this with my classes because we look at the areas that were most redlined in Baltimore in the 1930s, when the federal government said, "Okay, we're going to back loans for this area for lots of cities. This area, not that one. This area, not that one." Well, ultimately, you ended up with kind of a horseshoe, kind of a. It started off as kind of a horseshoe, but ultimately, yeah, it's kind of a warped butterfly in an arc,
Yeah.
right? And then there's a well-moneyed L that runs through it, and so you end up with two very distinct Baltimores. And these were the areas, and it's funny because I show the map of the redlined areas to my class, and then I show them a map of shootings and homicides, and you can just lay one right over the other and see it's just the same pattern. And of course, that butterfly was established in the 1930s, and I show them statistics
Yeah.
from 2019 and 2020. But those are the same neighborhoods. Yeah, absolutely.
For years. Yeah. Well, I won't say I go to the synagogue. I belong to Beth Am Synagogue, which is on Utah Place, Reservoir Hill. Haven't been there in over a year because it's all been distance. But
Oh, right.
yeah, there have been. I don't know. I'm not sure where that fits in the butterfly Reservoir Hill, but it's
Well, it's funny. Over time, we've developed these I call them transitional neighborhoods, but I've policed some of them too. I've policed Reservoir Hill. And you have, the people they call the urban pioneers moving in, and you've got old money families, and you have people living in housing developments, like literally a block, chocolate, like a block here, a block here, a block there, within view of one another, but living in very different worlds, economically, culturally. Yeah.
Now, you're originally Philly. Did you say? Did I read that you're from Philadelphia?
So yeah, I grew up in Philadelphia. I left there when I was 18 and went to college in DC, and found my way to Baltimore. But yes, originally from Philadelphia. I never had the sense I have of Baltimore is very different than the sense I had of Philadelphia. I mean, I was a kid when I was there, and so I never really got a strong sense of it as a character. But Baltimore is a very, very present character for me. Yeah. Now what's your trajectory from where you?
Yeah, grew up in a small town in the Midwest, Albion, Michigan.
Okay.
ultimately went to graduate school in Boston, which was where I met my wife, and then we came down here in 1983, and we're still kind of outsiders. Although our children are native Baltimoreans because they were born here, but yeah, we're still sort of outsiders.
It's funny. If people ask me, from where do you come? I say Baltimore, but it means a lot that I didn't grow up here. I wasn't socialized here. I think that's the thing that, makes such a big difference in understanding Baltimore and writing about it and claiming it. I didn't grow up with the sense of racial divide that you have here. I didn't grow up. I had a row with a supervisor of mine once because I said to him, you know what? I just don't understand a lot of the culture that I'm seeing working in the neighborhood in which we were operating. And he said, well, how can you say that? You're in it every day. And I said, but I didn't grow up with food anxiety. I didn't grow up with the owl and the butterfly. And so there's a very strong cultural milieu here that I still look at some of it, some cultures of Baltimore from the outside, and the others I've fit rather well, because there's so many aggregate Baltimores, right?
Yeah. I enjoyed being on that bus with was it Lilith or the Vixen when you're going down Holiday
Lilith.
Yeah, that's But I love Baltimore things. My claim to fame is that I was an extra in Barry Levinson's movie Liberty Heights.
I remember that film.
But I love these sort of movies and things about Baltimore and through the years, and there was a lot of stuff about I don't think it was called redlining at that time, but it was called places where you can't go and where
Right.
Black people or Jews are not allowed to go, kind of thing. And
right. And it's funny because as I did research, I found that there's some places definitely had their covenants, like Roland Park. Lots of them didn't have. They said occupant will not sell to home to Negro, Catholic, and then odd things like Filipinos and Spaniards, and there must have been like one incident, but lots of them had gentlemen's agreements about Jewish people. It was like it wasn't codified, but it was understood. We're going to keep the area as non-Jewish as possible if we can.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's been interesting.
Crossing Falls Road, I think it's called.
What's that?
Crossing Falls Road. I think that was the station line.
Right. So what
when we first when I first moved here, we moved. It was like throw a dart. We landed in an apartment. I live in Wyman Park right now, but
nice.
We moved to Bolton Hill into an apartment there. It's really a lovely neighborhood. It really is.
Mm-hmm. It is. I'm very fond of it, and I policed it for a while. It was very interesting because that was post 32, and post 33 was Sandtown Winchester. And so I found myself moving back and forth between the two posts. And in doing so, it was like a matter of, this world versus that world, and how expectations of the people that were policing seemed very different. It was really fascinating, a fascinating laboratory, really. So what's your muse? I mean, what kind of drives you when you sit down with pen and paper? I mean, what is it that gets you moving towards writing a piece? Is it this? Because I notice a lot of it is like very existential. You're looking at crime. You look at, oh, I think you're frozen. Oh, he's gone. I thought he was being just very still, but I think he was frozen.
Oh. It's this tech support coming live. Hold on, he's coming back on.
Okay, I can see you, but you're coming in.
I can suddenly hear voices.
Oh, wait. Oh, there he is. Okay.
Phew. I think that might have been my internet file. I don't know who's, but whatever.
I'm not sure how you sound. Anyone else? So you're coming in. You've got that helicopter sound again to me.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I've got my earbuds in, so. But they said get closer to your router, so maybe that's my problem. I got a little bit too.
There you go.
Is it better?
Yes, very clear.
Great. I have a poem that I would like to read that's along the lines of what we're talking about.
Okay.
It's today's. It's the very first. It's a rough draft. But it's called "I'm Not Throwing Away My Shot." You know, it's like.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Okay. But it's sort of this. We pulled into the pharmacy parking lot across the street from a 3-story mural painted on the side of an apartment building in this unfamiliar part of town. George Floyd's baleful eyes looking down at us, making me think of T.J. Eckelberg, the billboard in The Great Gatsby, gazing down on the American moral wasteland. We'd come here for our Moderna vaccinations, having scored appointments early one morning online, a sort of macabre competition for shots, a friend likened to the Hunger Games. Inside the drugstore, we went through the sign-in procedure, displaying ID and insurance information, then took our place in line on the molded plastic waiting area chair.
You're coming in frozen for me.
Theatrical poetry, maybe. Long pause.
I think he's on pause. Is he paused?
We'll give him a chance here. Why don't we do this? Edward, why don't you...
Oh, there we go. Now I can... Oh, all right.
Can you see?
Oh, okay. Yeah, he's gone.
So do you have a poem you could read?
I do. So Charles has mentioned this poem a couple of times. I will we'll peel this one out. This is called Lilith in Transit. I saw one of Rossetti's stunners on the bus this morning. I'm pretty sure it was Lilith, but don't hold me to that. I mean, she had those corn-forth lips, and she was brushing her hair, admiring her reflection in the mullion's fractured steel. But I could be wrong. I folded my paper, slumped in my seat, and watched my commuter Lilith preen her thick red curls as we shuttered past Holiday Street and the old boarded-up porno shop. Over her shoulder, I could see the place where Clara used to dance on her pole. And I swear the blind man on the corner of President and Baltimore, doomsday soothsayer with his all-seeing eye dog, hailed her as we passed. But my Lilith, incendiary in her affliction t-shirt, 2 rows up, only twisted her hair in those tortoise-shell coils, pursed her lips, and waited for the next stop to arrive.
Great. That's, yeah. I think we overlapped, and I think we had a lot of.
I think we overlapped.
Here we are. But yeah. So I think I was interrupted when I was doing mine, but it was about getting my shots, and we went, it's like a crapshoot where you get them, but we were the only white people in this Rite Aid store, and it seemed like I felt great about getting my vaccination, but I felt pretty guilty because this was kind of like possibly a white privilege sort of deal or something, because like you needed computers and access to the internet in order to get these vaccination appointments, I thought. But I could be mistaken, but I'm fully vaccinated now.
Great. It feels good, doesn't it? I've also got the double stick. Oh, I think Charles is frozen again.
So it looks like he is frozen again. I will give him a minute, see if he comes back. My Wi-Fi is also not being great at the moment, but he hopefully will be back in a second.
Mhm.
Edward, that poem was absolutely beautiful.
Thank
It
you.
was so nice to hear.
Thank you. And thank you for the work that you did. Well, if you guys did, this has been amazing. So impressed by the work from
No, it's beautiful. I love the cover.
that was amazing. So I have a few others here. Shall we stand by?
Yeah, please go ahead. That would
Okay.
be lovely.
Okay. This is actually the titular piece here. Gentrifying the Plague House. The only thing left in that room is the fever. It sits in the corner, humming to itself, speaking only Spanish when it chooses to speak at all. It squats in the corner where there was a crib, maybe, or where a soldier's cot was hastily dragged. It becomes a lugubrious Buddha when I enter the room. That is when it is slippery and weighed down by the faces of children and vagabonds. But when it shows itself, and you are in the audience, it is something more like a harpy, yes? Like something from a Salem headstone, something that flits and flaps wildly in the dingy corner. It grows wings for you, because in the presence of the Madre, it knows its sins and only wishes to escape.
So it looks like we had him and we may have lost him again. We did. He just went back out. But again, that was lovely. Yeah, Kevin Addix just said again, Paige Atkins was
Wait.
who worked on your cover, and she did a beautiful job.
You're kind of in and out.
I'm out too.
Yeah.
My goodness, everyone's having Wi-Fi. Oh, here we go.
Oh,
Back again.
hello.
Hi, Ed. How are you doing? Long time no see.
Long time. How have you been?
Well, the internet's been a little bit spotty.
I just read another, and so
The title.
there you are.
I got part of it. I did see part of it. I think I did you do a Stoop story? I was going through, Googled your name. Have you done the Stoop stories?
I did a Stoop story. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
I did a Stoop story about. In fact, I think it took place in Reservoir Hill. Now that it comes back to me, I did a Stoop story about the first homicide I ever encountered. Yeah, and so I've always been interested in how people occupy spaces and then what becomes of that space, especially in our psyche after we've left it, right? So the idea that I watched this guy, I watched that moment. There's that moment where he just slipped right down Maslow's hierarchy, and he stopped breathing. Right, I watched this guy, and ended up handling his personal effects, and was coded in his blood, and it was something that really stuck with me. So yes, I did a Stoop story on that. Oh. Sometimes I can't tell if you're standing very still or if you're frozen. I think you're frozen. Yes.
He was frozen, but that is that sounds so horrible, but also very, very interesting. And you did a Stoop story on that.
I'm trying to. I think you asked me something. I'm not sure. You're doing it again. Oh, wait. Here we go.
Here we go. For a little bit, anyway.
I'm just amazed that I'm the most consistent box on the screen. That's like blowing my mind because nothing technological works for me. So this is.
Yeah, I'm not sure. As I said, we've had some spotty internet lately, but this is beyond spotty.
But yes, I thoroughly enjoyed that. I really did. That was a big event for me. And That's one thing I really have. I've loved being involved. I've loved being involved in, I guess you could say, the arts and communication and humanities culture in Baltimore.
Yeah.
It's been just amazing. There are so many brilliant people here, and I would love to see Baltimore become a UNESCO literary city. I I would love to see us on the map as a place that produces writers and books and literacy. Um, I've often thought of that.
Yeah. Before the pandemic, well, I think some of the reading venues had started to shrink, but Lit and Art was run by Eric Goodman and Nitin Jagdish.
Mhm.
Had been a very good one. We're still friends, and I hopefully they'll get that back up and running when the time comes, but we'll see.
Mhm. So, do you have another piece you could?
Let me see if I'll grab one from Catastroika. Remember the term chain migration. Here's one. Chain migration. I just opened a rant to the page. I came to the United States in 1935, my dream for so many years. This is in Maria's voice. After Boris died in Paris, tuberculosis, worn out from his jobs, after the restaurant went bust, all day in the soap factory, night porter, car washer, just to keep me and the girls fed. Out of the blue, I got an offer to be a cabaret dancer in Bucharest. My name, not my dancing, got me the job, of course, but I had taken dance lessons in the Imperial Theaters in St. Petersburg. The dances were dreadful. Reenactments of Papa's murder. Every time I was crippled with memory, often breaking down and weeping, assaulted by emotion as if it were a club. So in 1929, I joined the circus, trained as a lion tamer, traveled throughout Europe for 5 years, mindlessly making the animals circle the ring. Audiences amazed wild animals could be so docile. Then Ringling Brothers brought me to the United States. As I say, a dream come true. The downside, my daughters, Tatiana and Maria, both teenagers by then, denied entry by United States Customs. So
The term, it's funny you use the term, very common here, but I mean it's said it like wow, looked right out at me, and it was a whole story until I joined the circus. Okay.
yeah,
I love that. I love that. So what does it mean when a migrant, joins the circus? Um, I'm leaving this reality. I'm going to something that to some extent has to be a fantasy, that's escape, and that it's, back on the hierarchy, a new sense of self-actualization. I joined the circus. That line leapt out at me. That was really, really, yeah. And right after the discussion of the kind of the celebration of her father's death, as a him being used as a prop almost.
yeah. Rasputin himself is just so. I mean, you see his name all over the place. He's in cartoons. He's in songs. There's a group that has and it's just he's like an earlier one I had was about Mata Hari, and it's these historical figures who become not what they are. They become these cartoon sort of reenactments, and
Right.
yeah.
Sure. I mean, everyone loves the story of how his final cause of death was drowning, but it was like after beating and stabbing and shooting, and it's like,
Yeah.
because it's important to keep him as this sort of preternatural figure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I'm not sure how much of that was historical and how much is a lot of it's got to be embellished over the years.
Oh, of course,
Yeah.
because his role as a historical figure, it's like after a while, no one's really going to care about it. It's like it's
Yeah.
what do you do with
Even
this character?
lifetime. Yeah, even in his lifetime, the exaggerations of his influence on the Romanovs was a little bit who knows what his relationship with them was, but they had all these rumors of him being Alexandra's lover, and really the puppeteer behind the crown, but
Mm-hmm.
I'm sure that's not really true. After the
Right.
collapse of the Soviet Union, they tried to rebuild. So some people in the Orthodox Russian Church wanted to elevate him to a saint and rehabilitated his reputation. So I don't know.
Hmm.
We should all be so.
Yes.
But that makes me think of that whole myth making impulse that's behind a lot of that you can see it's in a lot of your poetry.
Uh,
You know,
so I've always been fascinated by myth, particularly the need we have for it. Just like, why is it important to humans to create this story or that story to explain things?
yeah,
Um, that's always been because no one wants to feel like they're just a dot in space. They're just a point in space with no interconnection. And it also goes a lot to what's called proportionality bias, right? And something monumental happens in my life. Someone is born, someone dies, something's catastrophic. So I have to connect this somehow to a larger narrative, right? And I'm just fascinated. I've always been fascinated by that. It's funny, as you said that, I flipped the book open and the word myth was right there. The, this is called Creation Myth in One Day.
okay, yeah,
There are Cuban men in the Cuban men in the lobby now. They have come in at the height of the heat of the day in dark designer suits and open collars. They have come to play chess, teaching leaps and slanted lines to young girlfriends, talking to the Haitian woman who brews the coffee, coolly racing from the cigar shop around the corner to the library chill of this marble hotel. And when the sun is swallowed up, new ones rise out of the Atlantic, out of the beach's raked sand. They wear the white pants of cane cutters deliberately out at the knee, embracing conga drums with sinewy legs as they sit beside the lobby door. As I ply the Haitian woman for another cup, they thrum the taut hides of their drums, and they wail their words because the songs are ancient loves, circles drawn in sand, and an ocean full of dancing bones.
wow. I just started there. Somebody has written yet a new version of the Iliad. This one's
Ah,
called A Thousand Ships, and it's a feminist perspective. And so
really?
far, I've only read a couple of the chapters, but it starts out with Calliope, the muse of poetry,
Mm-hmm.
and she has her take on it. She's got a little bit annoyed by this guy Homer, who keeps demanding that she, inspire him. But
That's great.
yeah,
Oh, that's great.
so yeah. um, let's see. I'm not sure who the author is, but it's called A Thousand Ships, and it seems like every
Thousand
year there's a new. Yeah,
ships.
and it's
Got it.
I think Penelope writes a lot of letters to Odysseus, which of course actually happened, but I don't know.
Indeed.
I've noticed that you also employed some of these Greek, gods and Olympian figures. Hephaestus was, I think, the title of
Ah,
one of your,
yes.
and
Yes. Yes.
I had to
Well,
look up a number of the of the words that you had, and it begins with Y. It's a Japanese shape shifting ghost. I, I think it was Japanese,
Let's see here.
but I mean,
So you're looking at the last. No, no, that's not it. Hang on.
well, in the last one there was the thing about the karate thing, but I had to look that one up, but then I understood. But that's more a thing than a concept of the begins with
Oh, the
Y.
Makuwara. The Makuwara.
Yeah.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. So I was always fascinated by that. The idea the Macoetta is that it causes microfractures. And you'll see some very advanced older Catastroika with these very deformed hands. Their hands are, their knuckles are, it's like they've got one big knuckle. And it's from beating the Macoetta, causing these microfractures, knowing it's going to grow, that the bone will heal harder. The bone will be thicker and harder, but your hands may be deformed. It can even cause bone cancer. But that's
but
from
to break big pieces of wood, I guess.
well, the Satsuma samurai were occupying Okinawa, and they were armored. They were armored and horseback knights, and they were basically fighting these peasant farmers who they practiced the Chinese martial art, but they took all of their weapons and told them they couldn't practice. So this is why karate, open hand or empty hand, was developed. And part of the mindset of that hard hand is to literally be able to punch through armor. Now, whether they could actually do it, the idea is it was a psychological tool, and it often was a matter of them going up empty-handed against people that had weapons. But that's a long-standing practice of kicking and punching hard objects, and particularly that Macoetta, which is a board wrapped in rope, And I think I went back to that when I've thought about, continue to think about how to empower a daughter going into the world that she's adopting.
Yeah.
And so I went back.
That makes me think of the poem I read of yours, an ekphrastic response to something that was about, I think, your father teaching you to box.
Right. Right. So, and that, it's funny. Initially, wow, thank you so much. That's Queensberry Rules. The idea.
Yeah.
Right. The father, the parent passing down, some sort of armoring or empowerment to the child.
Who kind of resists. It seems to me like he resists. He feels the mucus in his face, and but he soldiers on because it's his father showing it.
Right, and of course, and it's the father working out the venom of the trauma that he's encountered. There are things done in love, but through pain. And the idea that this pain that I encountered, I have to armor you against this. And I think I don't know what your experience has been with that, but I think as a father, I've struggled with that, especially becoming as cognizant. I feel like I've become more cognizant of the misogyny in our society, and preparing a girl to go out and face it, and wanting her to be armored.
We have two daughters. I'm kind of like in my household, like an endangered species, But I'm very proud of them. They've made their way in the world. Of course, I'm sure they're encountering misogyny every day. But in fact, my one daughter who's working in the Defense Department sometimes has some observations of people's attitudes, the cultural biases. But anyway, but she's happy living in Korea right now.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah,
that's great. So I have a lot of fear about what she'll encounter, and about her facing it with strength and with resilience, and it's kind of like I hear these narratives of minority parents, Black and brown mothers and fathers, trying to armor their kids, prepare their kids, telling them how they should respond, shouldn't react, what they can expect, things like that as they go off into the world. And so, the idea of building armor was the thing that really inspired me with that. Got that here. It's in the manner of Hephaestus, First, I decide I must make a macahueta for her. The wood,
Yeah.
the board, should have drifted in from the ocean. It should be stout, maybe a beam torn from the ribcage of a whaling vessel that rolled over in its sleep and died in the sea that surrounds our home. I will haul it up from the beach, cutting my hands, baptizing its grains with a new finish as I pull it into our yard. I will wrap it in the coarsest rope that Chelsea's Hardware has to offer, and while I make those Ouroboros coils, I will wonder whether she should knit her hair into dreadlocks when the time comes. They would look fierce framing her face. But then I remind myself that you must never give them anything of yours that they can grab and use to hoist you from your feet or slam you to the earth. Better that her hair should huddle close to her skull, that sweat should bead on her scalp as she breaks her bones against the macahueta's hide. And if her eyes fill with watery pain, I will remind her that the spider webs that she feels cutting their way through her bones are the meaning of all this, that they cannot break a girl who has already fractured herself against a driftwood macahueta, that Ares was the only father an Amazon would claim.
Yeah. Nice. Ares, the god of war. I like that.
Right.
Love that word, Ouroboros, by the way. That snake biting its tail.
Biting its own tail.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love that symbol. I'm actually using that. I'm writing a science fiction piece. I'm using that in it as a recurring symbol.
Yeah. I'd like to read this one. Is the Circus. I mean, we're talking about the Circus, and
Yes.
and this is in the voice of the fictional Jewish character, and he and Maria, the real live, flesh and blood, real historical figure, brush paths in a way all through the thing. But anyway, it's called The Circus, and this is from his point of view. It was the middle of the Depression, yes, but I still had my job, even though Mr. Epstein sold Baltimore bargain house, the Butler brothers, changing the name to the American General Corporation. Riva still worked at the bakery. People would always need bread. So we decided to treat the kids to a show, The Circus. Hermie just about me, following 2 and 5 years later, Frida, a babe in arms. The children cavilled, especially Hermie, himself the ringmaster in his own circus acts he staged for us in Druid Hill Park, making his younger brothers perform, clown, strongman, acrobat. Ringling Brothers had brought the Barnum and Bailey, the greatest show on earth, at the start of the century, but they'd only combined into the one grand show around 1919, running 2 different circuses, too much work for the last 2 Ringlings. We took the train up to New York, staying with Riva's brother Isaac's family on the Lower East Side. Greeted by a vivid poster, a woman dancing with a tiger under the legend, "Intrepid Lady Trainer Wrestling, the now friendly terror of the jungle," we took our seats under the big top. Only after the trapeze artists, the tumblers, the clowns, the giraffe neck woman from Burma did the lady lion tamer and her menagerie enter the ring. I knew I'd seen her before. Sure, she died with her father and siblings during the bloodiest savagery of the Civil War. I hadn't given her a thought in years. "You look like you've seen a ghost," Riva murmured, her brows knitting together in concern. "I think I have."
Love it. So I love the way you end a lot of your pieces. I've read your poems, and I feel like you can really see there's this narrative, there's this dialogue, and you take this piece of it out, this really poetic piece that can stand on its own, and because it makes you think like, wait, what's next? What, that was beautiful. I mean, that was really how you.
Yeah, I see these things as sort of like little beads in a chain adding up to a long narrative. But
yeah, I got that from some of the work that you wrote about crime and some of the crime pieces. That's pretty cool.
Oh yeah. Gerald, so that you should do that. It's a lot of fun. You have to write a confession and do all kinds of things, and I'm sure you must have tons of stuff on that. Do you use stuff you encounter in work for?
Oh, absolutely. It's been therapeutic, and it's also, I've got to take these moments and mold them over. I've got to take these moments and say, now, what does this mean to me? I mean,
what just happened?
Yeah, what just happened? That's a really good point. What just happened? Um, I've had a few pieces in this book and my last one of these distilled moments that quickly come and go. And like you said, I have to ask, now, what did that mean? Like, why did that person say that, or why did I react that way, or did that really even happen? I wrote one about someone who, there was a rain falling. There was what they call a devil's rain. The sun was shining and the rain was falling, and chased this guy down an alleyway, and he said, "You know what?" He stopped and he said, "I'm tired. I want you to just shoot me." He said, "Just kill me." And he got on the ground and he said, "Just put one behind my ear." And I said, "I'm not going to shoot you." And he was really like, he became very distressed. He's like, I really don't want to live anymore. And so
Oh my
I
God.
got help. I got help for him, but that's more than once I've had someone just at the very end of their rope and just say, "Officer, you can go ahead and just kill me."
Wow.
And so I have to go back and contemplate, like, wow, what's going on? What just happened here? Who am I in this guy's eyes? Like that was a big thing. It's like, does he view me as like a machine, like like a suicide machine, or I mean,
death,
that
suicide by
I would take some pleasure in this, or this was maybe a symbol of my humanity. I don't know, and so I had to really contemplate it.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, I these days I'm just sort of a retired gent, and also we're doing this, still doing the quarantine. So, but I say that I've had that sounds very, very right up in your face, kind of what life is, the split decision kind of thing they say.
Right.
So, did I read that that it was 9/11 that impelled you to become a police?
Yeah. I tried to be a U.S. Marine when I was in college, and I damaged my back at officers candidate school, and so spent years in different forms of academia. And it was 9/11 took place. I always thought, I'm feeling better. I've been doing martial arts, and I feel strong, and I made a goal of it. But yes, that was definitely, it was one of those very visceral American, Americana movements, and if your country calls you type thing. But yeah, I did, and it's been about 15 years now. So I went to graduate school first. I went to finish my master's degree at Johns Hopkins, and then joined up.
I used to work at Social Security. I was IT, but somehow it was disaster recovery and so on. Somehow I became, and I didn't choose it. It chose me to be the guy that did fire drills in my building, which is like disaster sort of things happening. And so, I had to recruit people to, be the hall monitor of the Northwest stairwell on the third floor or whatever. And sometimes there would be real incidents. And so it was there were never any real, situations that demanded that I make a split-second decision or anything. But it was a pretty interesting part of my job there. Generally, I just sort of looked at plans and stuff, but this was kind of, sometimes things happened.
Yeah. And I mean, we teach officers to find that person when you have an emergency in a building, if you've got a bomb or something like that. So to go looking for the person who's got the plan. Right. Now, so you see,
it was kind of, I had to account for absolutely everybody, and I'm not sure if that ever really actually happened, because there were two different organizations that were responsible for their people, and I don't know if they were ever completely coordinated. Nobody ever died. Thank goodness. If somebody did, then that would have been.
There's a start.
But some people hide in the bathrooms during fire drills because they don't want to participate or something. But I'm not sure of that. How much of that?
That's funny.
It was kind of interesting.
Now, what did you study in graduate school? You said you went to graduate school in Boston?
Yeah, Boston University. English and American literature and language. And then when I came to Baltimore and I was working at a place called General Instrument, I was living in Bolton Hill, and I was helping the guy who did videography, and so Micah was right there, and I got some black and white photography courses. It was just wonderful I noticed there were a lot of photographers in your poems too. But anyway, so I would go to Micah every evening, and it was wonderful. And then that turned into a master's in publication design. And that I was glad that I did that. I met a lot of interesting people in Baltimore, writers and editors and so on. Never really became, a factor in my professional life, but, I'm retired now, so what do I care? But
it is what it is.
Yeah.
It is what it is. That's neat. I'd love to go back to do more studies. I did my Master of Liberal Arts. I'd love to do literature as well. I think I could probably just stay in school, but
yeah, I know. Yeah.
No particular issue with that. What are the books that have inspired you most?
I guess that's a good question. I went through it as a 20-year-old kid. I read all of William Faulkner. I loved all of William Faulkner, and then Saul Bellow. I read all of Saul Bellow and Philip Roth. I'm not sure. The poets. Gosh, that my one of my current favorite poets is a guy named George Bilger, but that could change tomorrow. I don't know.
Right, of course.
Yeah, it's hard to sort of own up to, in one sense, one's influences, I guess. But I guess we haven't. How about you? How would you answer that?
Kind of the same way. I've got a lot of overlapping. I mean, I went through a pretty strong Beats period. And I brought. Yeah. I think I carried Allen Ginsberg away from that more than anything else. I love Carson McCullers. She's a favorite of mine going back to high school, I think, and I really liked. So I got into a lot of Southern writers. I liked Faulkner also. I liked Flannery O'Connor. I like the misfit characters. The counterculture characters of Southern literature. I really enjoyed those.
Name of the guy. Yeah, now Walter Percy, was that his name? He was a physician, and he lived in New Orleans, and he wrote The Moviegoer and a few other novels. I'm trying to remember his name. I think Walter Percy, but
that's so familiar. Yeah. So those are, I like Langston Hughes. So a lot of the Harlem Renaissance. I
was fortunate enough. I used to teach at Essex Community College in Baltimore, and I was and on the adjunct faculty, so there were assigned. I got to pick certain things that people could read, but everybody in the department would do X one year, and one year we did Harlem Renaissance, and that was just really wonderful. I read some writers that I hadn't really read totally in depth. Zora Neale Hurston. And there was one. Gosh, I'm trying to remember. I don't know, but that was it. I enjoyed doing that. Well, doing teaching. You're a teacher, and you stay a step ahead, and it's a way of learning as well as kind of being the fount of knowledge. It's sort of. I think that's the thing I like about it. You learn really, and you learn from the students too.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's the thing. If you can you throw that piece out there and see what they make of it, that's the thing. And I've really become a proponent of killing the author, as they say, that great eight-page essay of, what is it that the reader makes of the piece. That's why I really appreciate hearing you talk about the work that I've written, because you hear people reflect on your work and think, wow, did I mean that? Wow. Yeah, Barbara
I
Kingsolver. Barbara Kingsolver, who's another one of my favorite writers. Barbara Kingsolver said, "Every writer that you've been has a right to exist." And I'm reading listening to her give a speech, and she said she was supposed to do a talk about animal dreams several years after she'd written it. So she said, "I'm going to go back," and she went back and read it. And she said about halfway through, she thought, "Who wrote this?" So getting
yeah,
insight.
I feel embarrassed by some of the things that I find that I wrote a long, long time ago. But other people would probably read it and say, "Oh, that's fine," but that's not me anymore. I'm tell you, I've changed, kind of thing.
Isn't that interesting? Isn't that the case? You look at it and Walker Percy, thank you.
Walker.
Isn't that great that you can look back at that and think like, okay, well, yeah, that's when I was really into that, or yeah.
Yeah. Back before I was wise or something.
I'm losing you again.
I'm getting a very low battery. I just got a low battery message. I think I can eke out the next 3 minutes though. Let's see if we can do this.
Great. I was desperately charging it before we like, come on, give me a few more bars. But
yeah. I have a very old model, and it's kind of.
There
I
you
think
go.
These are built to fall apart. They're obsolescence is built into these things. So, but so far so good.
Oh, you're kind of in and out. I'm losing you a little bit. I went through a transcendentalist stage. Read a lot of that. Of course, I started. When I think about when I went through a period where I read a lot of pulp. A lot of pulp in the 80s. It's funny because it was given the classification men's fiction, and it was very formulaic. Very formulaic, very kind of amygdala writing. But I think in retrospect,
I'm currently right now. I'm listening to an audio book of the 87th Precinct Police. It's really, really good. Ed McBain. It's set in the 50s when JFK was called Idlewild Airport.
Oh, I wish you weren't. You're glitching. It sounds like you're saying something good, but I'm losing you.
Well, guys, I'm going to jump in because we're at the end of our hour anyway. So time to recharge your phones and reboot the Wi-Fi.
Yeah.
Listen, on behalf of Sarah and Apprentice House, I want to thank you both for joining us. I think it's fascinating to hear your background and to hear you read the work. Charles, it's been a few years since I've heard you read, and Ed, this is the first time, so really thoroughly enjoyed it. So thank you both for joining us.
Very much enjoyed this. Thank you.
Let's stay in touch, okay?
Yeah, we'll stay in touch.
Yeah, thank you very, very much.
Thank you very much. Love your work.
So, as I said, on behalf of Apprentice House, thank you everybody for checking it out. You can learn more about Apprentice House Press and the work we do at apprenticehouse.com. And you can visit apprenticehouse.com's bookshop and use the code STREAM for 20% off all purchases. We've got all three of Charles's books up there, and we've got Edward's new book up there, which came out quite recently. And we'd be thrilled if you took a look. So with that, I want to thank everybody for joining us, and cheers.